Alright, so this is going to be my getting started video with resin. So the first thing I usually do is, if your room temperature is colder than 65-70 degrees, I will put these in water that is warmer than lukewarm but not hot, so some warm water for about 10 minutes. But I think this is fine. You can see that it is moving readily and not too viscous, so I'm actually going to skip that step this time. So of course I like to have all my equipment ready ahead of time. These are the cups I'm going to be using. I like to use cc's because I feel that the increments are more exact. It really doesn't matter, just as long as you get your increments properly. Then I'm going to be using this beaker that came with this resin, and here are some old ones that I've used already. I'm going to try to scrape out so I can reuse it. Resin can be extremely wasteful. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so when I do resin, especially when I'm doing coasters, really, I like to do the edge first and let that cure. So today I won't even be adding stickers or anything. Stickers will be added in the next process. Alright, so I'm only going to do 2 coasters today because I don't have that much resin left. I like to do everything the same way every time, so I don't get confused later on what I did first or whatever. So I always pour the resin first and then the hardener, just so that it's consistent and there's no question of what I just did. So for the edge of these, I don't really remember, but I'm going to try to do 20 cc's of each, and I think that should be enough. Actually, I think I'm going to do 25. And so when I'm measuring, of course, I'm looking eye level to make sure that it lines up exactly. Okay. And then I usually have something ready to wipe off the edge of the bottle. Cover it back up. Now I'm going to pour the hardener, which you probably can't even see what I'm doing. Couldn't really find a good spot for the camera, so yeah. So we're going for 25 again. Make sure that's level. And wipe off the edge again. And close our bottle up. Okay, so now we're ready to mix. So there are, as you know, some reusable sticks you can use. I bought a whole bunch of wooden craft sticks a while back, so that's what I'm going to be using. I do tend to reuse these, especially if I don't get like dye or glitter on them. I'll go ahead and just set them on the wax paper and then reuse them next time I'm stirring. So I'm kind of noticing that the resin is a little bit more viscous than what I was, than optimal, but I think it's going to be fine. I just need to make sure I scrape out as much as possible and mix it really well. So generally speaking, what I try to do is just make sure that I scrape them out the same amount, because it can be impossible to get it all out completely. But if you don't scrape them out the same, then you won't have a 1-to-1 ratio, so you want to make sure that you get that ratio as close as possible. I have had instances where my resin didn't cure, and it was just because I didn't get the measurements precise. Okay, so I've scraped these out about both the same. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these out. There's probably things you can use to measure in which you can reuse. A lot of the stuff I'm using is just disposable because that's what I bought when I first started doing resin. And so I'm not really particular on how long I mix it. The key is to make sure that you scrape the edges, make sure that you scrape the bottom, and you get it all mixed in evenly. And you want to go until you don't see any stringiness. So I actually tend to wear a headlamp in the basement because the lighting isn't as good, so that I can see whether it's mixed all the way or not. And the way you'll be able to tell is you shouldn't have any stringiness or any like fogginess. So if you dip your stick in, pull some out, do you see a stringiness? If you do, keep stirring. Okay, so some tutorials I've seen, after you stir, you can let this like sit for 10 minutes so that some of the bubbles come out. For me, I used to do that, but I don't really see any point in it now, especially since I have the heat gun. I will just hit it with the heat gun after I poured it, and that'll get rid of a lot of the bubbles. So now that I have my mixture ready to go, I'm actually going to separate it into 2 different containers because I'm wanting 2 different colors. Alright, so just FYI, I did mix a little bit more off camera just to make sure everything was thoroughly mixed. Alright, and so I did 25 of each, so I'll try to pour back about 25 of each. I'm gonna go a little shy of 25 because most likely I lost some resin in the process as it stuck on the cups I threw away. Okay, and I'm just gonna leave, well, now I'll just go ahead and really these cups are kind of small, but that's what I have. So all right, now I'm gonna be adding some dye. I probably should have decided ahead of time what I was going to do, but I didn't. Let me think. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add some dye. This is what I'm using. You can't see it. I'll show it afterwards. But I have a fluorescent green, and then I have a regular green. And so in this cup, remember, there's about 25 cc's. These are, you know, obviously mixed. What I normally do is add about anywhere from 2 to 4 drops of dye. 2 drops if I want it to be transparent. 4 drops if I want a much more deeper, richer, maybe less penetrating color. And then sometimes I do mix colors together. So I think I'm actually going to do 5 drops, where I did 3 of the fluorescent green and then 2 of the regular green. Everybody's different on how they like to mix their colors and pour their stuff. I'm like a very neat kind of person, where I like everything thoroughly mixed, even color, before I pour it in. But some people will drop the dye in as they're pouring and get some really cool effects. It's just not really my style. It's not something I've tried or I'm very comfortable with. Okay. So we've got the dye in there, and then maybe I want to add some glitter. And so I have like some glitter shakers, and I'll just like do a shake or two, mix that in. And just try to get it as even as possible, remembering to scrape the edges because the dye will stick to the edges and whatnot. Alright, so now I'm ready to pour. Sometimes I do this very well, and sometimes I do it badly. So, here we go. And I'm doing it badly. Okay. So 25 was a little much. I used a little too much resin. But you can just scrape it out. It's okay. It's not a big deal. So we're gonna let this cure overnight anyway. So I'm just scraping out the excess. And I really did mix too much resin. I couldn't remember how much I did for just a single one, because I did 3 last time. Yeah, so I might actually end up doing a 3rd coaster just to use whatever's left here, because it's quite a bit. Okay, and then so with the last bit, I'm just going to wipe it off the paper towel. I don't really want to leave anything in the middle. If I do tomorrow, once it's cured, I absolutely have to take that all off before I do the next layer. And like I said, like some people like to do their pours a little bit messier with different colors, and so maybe what I'm doing doesn't matter to you. Maybe, you know, you would just leave it like that. That's fine. Okay, Okay, so I finally got that a bit better where I'm okay with it. Tomorrow what I'm gonna do is after this is cured, I'll get some tape and stick. That way any droplets that may be in the center will be removed. So what I'm going to do is, because that last pour was too much resin, I'm going to pour some of this back into the larger beaker. And this time I'm going to do pink. I've never used this pink before, so I'm excited about that. Ooh. Alright. I'm not sure if the pink is fluorescent. I don't think it is. The green is, though. Alright, so this is pouring a lot better because I don't have so much resin. I really had too much resin last time. I usually have the opposite problem. I usually don't have enough, so I overcompensated. Looks good. So I'm going to utilize that green that I used before and not waste it. I've never really done this before with a dye. I've done it with powder, but what I've decided to do is I'm actually going to use on this coaster both colors, and I'll do like a sort of half and half, maybe. We'll see. Now, I don't know what sticker I'm going to put in what now. I'll figure it out though. Alright, yay, so nothing gets wasted. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly hit it with my heat gun. Sometimes I see people use heat guns on resin for extended periods, and you're really not supposed to do that. Just think about if you're getting it excessively hot, you're starting to burn it, and things burning in there aren't good for you. It's not really good for the resin either. But you know, people do it all the time. And the stuff that comes out fine. I just really try to avoid doing that. It's not necessary. And that's it.